Ever find yourself watching one of those police procedural shows and like wondering what it takes to train real-life officers?
Yeah.
It's kind of fascinating, right?
It is.
So that's what we're diving into today
Yeah.
with RoleCatcher's Career Guide on becoming a police trainer.
Really interesting stuff.
Think of this as like your backstage pass to understanding what it really takes to mold the next generation of law enforcement.
Yeah. And it's a world full of like nuances that I think people don't always realize.
Okay.
I have spent years in law enforcement training development. And even I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, nodding along with some of these things. So
let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to become a police trainer, which, I mean, when you hear that, what do you think of?
you think of like,
You think of like intense drills?
yeah.
Maybe like that Hollywood scene of teaching someone how to like disarm a suspect in the nick of time.
It's a vivid picture.
Right.
But what I think is so cool about this guide is that it highlights just how much more there is to the job.
Okay.
Yes, there's the hands-on stuff, you know, the firearms training,
Sure.
defensive tactics,
Yeah.
like all the adrenaline pumping stuff.
Stuff that looks cool on TV.
Exactly. But
Right.
it's also about education, about shaping minds just as much as physical skills.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
it's not all about just being like this super fit action hero type.
No.
Like the guide emphasizes the academic side as well,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So you got to be like well-versed in the law, government regulations, community relations, like all of it.
It's like a blend of like professor and coach.
Oh, wow.
You know, one day you might be giving a lecture on legal procedures,
Right.
and then the next you're out on a range overseeing firearms training.
Wow.
The guide actually mentions they're using VR in these simulations now.
Whoa, VR training.
Yeah.
That's next level.
Isn't that interesting?
But it makes sense when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes are really high.
Yes.
This isn't like teaching someone how to drive a car.
No.
This is life or death stuff.
Absolutely. And that's something this guide really drives home, is that police trainers need to be on top of their game constantly.
Always learning.
Always learning, because laws change, best practices evolve, new challenges emerge all the time.
Sure.
As a trainer, you always have to be ahead of the curve.
To make sure that the officers you're training are equipped to handle whatever comes at them.
Wow. So this is a job with a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The guide mentions high stress as a con, but I feel like that's putting it mildly.
Yeah,
Don't you?
a little bit.
Like, how do they even begin to describe that?
Well, to be fair to the guide, they do kind of delve a little deeper.
Yeah.
They talk about things like the extreme conditions, like the intense heat
Oh, yeah.
during outdoor training,
Yep.
or the pressure of those high-stakes simulations where you have to make split-second decisions.
Right.
But even beyond that, there's a significant emotional toll that comes with this.
You're not just witnessing these intense scenarios.
No.
You're responsible for guiding these recruits through them,
Yeah.
helping them process it all,
Exactly.
and making sure they're okay to like,
Handle the real deal.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
The guide highlights the need for resilience, empathy,
Yeah.
a deep understanding of like
Wow.
the psychological impact of law enforcement work.
So you're dealing with all different kinds of recruits
Right.
with their own backgrounds, their own ways of coping, and you're often on the front lines of dealing with that mental and emotional toll of this job.
That's right.
So we've established this is not your average 9 to 5,
No,
but a lot of times with big challenges come big rewards.
that's true.
What does the guide say about the upside?
Well, you know, the tangible benefits are definitely appealing.
Okay.
A competitive salary, strong job security.
Sure.
But I think the most rewarding aspect, and the guide really highlights this, is the impact you could have.
Yeah.
You are shaping the future of law enforcement.
Wow.
You're directly contributing to the safety and security of your community.
That's amazing.
That's a powerful feeling.
So the million-dollar question, should you become a police trainer?
Right.
Based on RoleCatcher's breakdown, it seems like a big decision with a lot to think about.
It really is a complex decision because the pros are enticing,
Right.
especially for people who are driven by a sense of purpose and a desire to make a difference.
Sure.
But you can't go into this without being aware of the demands,
Right.
both physical and emotional.
Yeah.
This isn't just a job, it's a commitment to shaping the future of law enforcement.
You've really got to have a passion for it.
You do.
You need that drive to not just teach, but to inspire,
Right?
to mold recruits into officers who are not only skilled, but who also
Have those values.
have integrity,
Yes.
compassion, respect, all of that.
And that brings us to something I found really interesting.
Go.
It really challenges the traditional image of a police trainer.
What do you mean?
Well, we often think of police trainers as like these strict disciplinarians focused only on like physical prowess and tactical skills. But this guide emphasizes the importance of other qualities.
Okay.
Things like empathy, cultural sensitivity, a deep understanding of the communities that police officers actually serve.
Which is so important, especially today.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to just enforce the law.
No.
You have to be able to build trust with the community.
And to have those relationships.
Right, and ensure the safety and well-being of everyone.
Absolutely.
So while those physical and tactical skills are essential, the guide is saying that the ideal police trainer is someone who can connect with recruits.
On a human level.
On a human level, understand those complexities of human behavior.
Yes.
And really instill those values of de-escalation and conflict resolution.
It's about so much more than what you teach.
Right.
It's how you teach it.
You're shaping mindsets.
Yes, and that's why the guide focuses so much on communication and social perceptiveness and critical thinking as core abilities for police trainers.
Yeah, because you have to be able to connect with people from all different backgrounds.
All different backgrounds.
Build that trust and create an environment that's about more than just following orders. It's about producing officers who can handle those high-pressure situations, but also approach their work with empathy and understanding, a commitment to serving everyone.
And that's where it starts.
It all comes back to that human element.
It does.
Okay, so you need to understand human behavior and group dynamics.
Yes.
Conflict resolution.
And you need to be able to communicate that effectively.
Communicate it well.
To a diverse group of recruits.
So the guide lists instructing as a core ability.
Right.
Along with things like
critical thinking, social perceptiveness.
So this is really a multifaceted role.
It really is.
It's about connecting those dots between the theory and the actual practice of it all.
Exactly.
Okay, the guide mentions coordination as a key skill. And we're not just talking about like scheduling the training session.
No, it's about managing a group of recruits.
Okay.
During a high-pressure simulation.
Right.
You got to make sure that everybody's safe, everybody's learning what they need to learn.
Right.
Adapting to those unexpected challenges and giving clear instructions.
Wow.
In the heat of the moment.
So let's say you've got the skills, the knowledge, the temperament. What does that career trajectory actually look like?
Well, the guide has a whole section on career stages. It's really interesting.
What'd you find interesting about that?
It lays out all the different paths your career could take. Almost like a choose-your-own-adventure for aspiring police trainers.
Okay, so walk us through it.
Okay.
Where does it all begin?
So you usually start at the entry level.
Assisting more senior trainers.
So it's kind of like an apprenticeship.
It is.
Where you're shadowing more experienced trainers, watching their techniques.
Seeing how they do it?
Yeah.
Maybe even helping out with some of the lectures?
Okay.
Or practical exercises?
Getting a feel for the job, learning the ropes.
That's right.
Maybe even getting thrown into the deep end from time to time.
Yeah, you're going to have to learn how to swim.
Right.
It's a lot of observation early on.
Right.
Taking in how more experienced trainers handle different situations.
Okay.
Different personalities, different learning styles.
Yeah, because everybody learns differently.
Everybody learns differently, and as you gain experience, you'll gradually take on more responsibility.
Okay.
And eventually you move up to the role of junior police trainer. And that's when you really start to spread your wings a little bit.
That's right.
You start delivering those lectures yourself.
Exactly.
Conducting those hands-on training sessions. You're developing your own style.
Your own style.
That's got to be so scary.
Yeah, it is.
But also exhilarating at the same time.
It's both. Right. You're drawing on what you've learned from those seasoned trainers, but you're also starting to figure out who you are as an instructor.
Find your own voice.
Find your own voice.
That's a crucial stage.
It is.
You're really honing your skills.
You're
gaining confidence and starting to make your mark.
Yeah.
On the training program.
On the program.
And as you continue to excel, the guide highlights this possibility of moving up to senior police trainer.
That's right.
So you're a few years in. You've honed your skills.
Yeah.
You're comfortable leading those training sessions. What's next?
What's next is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
You're not just delivering the training anymore. You're designing it.
Oh.
You're collaborating with other agencies,
Okay.
maybe even academic institutions, to develop brand new training programs.
Wow.
Incorporating the latest technologies and addressing those new challenges that are always popping up.
So you're not just shaping the skills of individual officers now.
Right?
You're influencing training standards on a much larger scale.
You are.
That's a whole other level of impact.
It is.
And your mentorship role probably expands too.
It does.
You're guiding those newer trainers, passing on everything you've learned.
That's right.
Helping them navigate this really unique profession.
It's amazing to think about.
It is.
To go from assisting with lectures
Right.
to potentially shaping how an entire department approaches training.
It's incredible.
It's a testament to the growth and the learning that this career path offers.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there's one more level.
Really?
The guide highlights
Okay.
the top of the mountain,
Okay.
chief police trainer.
Wow. The top of the mountain.
Well,
What does it even look like?
You have reached the top of the training pyramid.
Okay.
You oversee everything
Wow.
from curriculum development and instructor selection
Wow.
to setting the overall direction of the program.
So you're making sure that it aligns with the needs of the department and the community it serves.
All of it.
That's a position of incredible influence.
It is.
You need a deep understanding not just of law enforcement, but the social and political and ethical.
Everything.
Everything.
You got to think about it all.
And you were talking about how important it is to stay updated.
Yes.
As chief trainer, you're not just keeping up with trends.
Oh.
You're anticipating them.
You're shaping the future.
Wow.
You're responsible for making sure that your officers have the skills and the knowledge to navigate this really complex job.
Effectively, ethically, safely.
All of it.
No pressure.
Right.
That's a huge weight to carry.
It is.
But also incredibly inspiring.
It's a demanding field,
Yeah.
but it's one that offers such a profound sense of purpose.
Right.
And the opportunity to make a real difference.
Not just in the officers' lives,
Right.
but the communities that they're serving.
That's
So we've talked about the incredible responsibility that comes with like shaping the next generation of law enforcement. But how do you even begin to prepare someone for a job that's so multifaceted?
right.
It's not just about physical strength.
Oh.
It's not just about knowing the law. It's about judgment ethics.
Yeah.
That human element that we keep coming back to.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it's something that this guide really gets into.
Okay.
Remember those core abilities that we were talking about before?
Yeah.
Communication, social perceptiveness, critical thinking.
Yeah.
Those aren't skills you learn overnight.
Right. You're training officers to be like a blend of guardian and mediator and even counselor in some cases. So how do you even begin to prepare someone for that?
Well, it all goes back to that blend of education and hands-on experience. The guide spends a lot of time talking about certifications.
Yeah.
And it's not just about checking boxes.
Right.
These are intense programs that dive deep into specialized areas of police training.
So it's not enough to be a good officer yourself.
No.
You have to be an expert in teaching other people how to be good officers.
That's right. And there are so many different types of certification.
What are we talking about here?
Well, you've got your foundational ones.
Okay.
Your police officer certification, instructor certification, CPR, first aid.
Yeah.
And then you get into the specialized stuff, like defensive tactics instructor, firearms instructor, crisis intervention training.
Wow.
It goes on and on.
Wow.
And each one is equipping you with the skills and the knowledge
Okay.
to train officers in really specific aspects of the job.
Wow. So it's like from handling a firearm to like de-escalating a mental health crisis.
Exactly.
There's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it.
It sounds like continuous learning is a huge part of this.
It really is. The world of law enforcement is constantly changing.
Yeah.
And as a trainer, you have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to learn and grow.
Keep up with it.
Yeah, constantly keep up with it. Because in a field as demanding and high stakes as law enforcement training,
Right?
there's just no room for complacency.
You got to be on top of it.
You have to be at the top of your game, both for your own sake and the sake of the officers that you're training.
It's a huge responsibility, but also probably incredibly rewarding.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing that you're playing such a vital role
Yeah.
in shaping the future of law enforcement.
You feel good about it. Right.
Equipping those officers with the skills that they need
Mm-hmm.
to serve their communities, to protect people.
Yeah. There's a real sense of pride that comes with that.
I bet.
Knowing that you're making a difference. But,
Yeah.
the guide doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right.
It acknowledges the stress levels, the potential for burnout, the emotional toll of dealing with some really difficult situations.
It's a side of the job that we don't often see portrayed
And we don't.
in those like action-packed police dramas.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all.
Right.
The car chases and the, the adrenaline rush, but
there's a lot more to it.
There's a lot more to it.
And a lot more goes into it.
Yeah.
The guide is really emphasizing that.
The guide reminds us that behind every successful officer, there's a team of dedicated trainers who've invested their time, their energy, and often their own emotional well-being
into preparing them for that job.
Yeah.
And speaking of preparing for that job, I want to circle back to something you said earlier.
Okay.
About the different academic pathways.
Yes.
You were saying it's not always about coming straight from a law enforcement background.
That's right. It's not always a requirement.
That really surprised me.
Yeah, it surprised me too at first.
But I guess the more you think about, like, all the different facets of the job.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
You know, they emphasize the value of psychology and sociology.
Right.
Communications even.
Wow.
These are all skills that can be honed through different academic disciplines.
It's almost like police trainers are a blend of educator and mentor and psychologist.
They are? Wow. They really are.
And I can see how understanding human behavior would be so valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in those high-stress situations.
Especially in those situations.
Remember those simulations that we were talking about?
Yeah.
A trainer who has a background in psychology might be able to pick up on those subtle cues in a recruit's behavior.
Oh, what?
Maybe a hesitation or a change in tone.
Okay.
Something that might indicate that they're not handling that pressure as well as they appear to be.
So it's about being able to read between the lines.
Yes.
Understanding the psychology behind those actions.
And not just recognizing it, but knowing what to do.
Right.
How to address it. And that's where those communication skills are so important.
So important.
A good trainer has to be able to give constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Build rapport. Motivate those recruits.
From all different walks of life.
All different walks of life.
Who learn in different ways.
Who learn in different ways, exactly.
Who have different personalities.
Different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses.
It's like you're training officers to train other officers.
You are.
You're equipping them with the skills to pass that knowledge on.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow, it's like a ripple effect.
It is.
The impact of one good trainer can go so far.
So far.
And it made me think of something else that's really important.
What's that?
That the guide emphasizes, which is this increasing scrutiny on law enforcement.
Right.
And this demand for transparency and accountability.
It's something you can't ignore these days.
No, you really can't.
And it just makes the role of the trainer that much more critical.
How so?
Well, they emphasize that it's not enough to just teach officers how to do the job.
Okay.
It's about teaching them how to do it ethically,
right,
with respect for the communities that they serve.
So it's about building that trust.
Yes.
Bridging that gap between law enforcement and the community.
It starts with training.
Fostering those positive relationships.
Absolutely. And the guide really gets into that.
Okay.
They say that police trainers have to instill this deep understanding of how their actions impact the community,
right,
the importance of cultural sensitivity, the value of de-escalation, conflict resolution, all of that.
It's about changing the narrative.
It is.
It's not us versus them.
No.
We're all in this together. It's about shared responsibility for everyone's safety.
That's right. And training officers who don't just see themselves as enforcers of the law, but as guardians of the peace.
Wow.
Committed to protecting everyone.
That's a tall order.
It is a tall order.
How do they suggest trainers go about doing that?
Well, one thing that stuck out to me is this emphasis on scenario-based training.
Okay.
Especially those VR simulations that we were talking about earlier, because it allows those recruits to actually experience those real-life situations in a safe environment.
In a safe environment.
They can make mistakes and learn from them without any real-world consequences.
So it's like practice.
It's practice.
Before you have to do it for real.
Exactly. Instead of just memorizing something from a textbook.
Yeah.
They're getting to actually apply what they've learned.
Right.
In scenarios that are really similar to what they might encounter on the job.
So it's like they're getting to practice those skills.
Yeah.
In a safe space. Before they have to actually do it for real.
Exactly.
Which is invaluable.
It is.
And it's not just about those individual skills either, right? The guide also talks about like team training.
Yeah.
Using VR to simulate those situations where officers have to
Work together.
Work together, right?
Yeah.
Communicate under pressure. Make decisions as a unit.
It helps build trust.
Right.
Cohesion.
Which is so important.
Absolutely.
So VR is like...
It's a game changer.
It's changing the game.
It is.
It's equipping them with a whole other level of preparedness.
And adaptability.
Adaptability. I love that. But it always comes back to that human element.
It always does.
Right? We keep saying that.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about empathy, cultural sensitivity, ethical decision-making. How do you teach that?
Right. How do you teach that?
How do you train someone to have those qualities?
Well, that's where I think the why behind the what is so important.
What do you mean?
It's not just about teaching them how to do the job.
Sure.
It's about making sure that they understand the impact that their actions have on individuals, on communities.
So you're connecting those technical skills to like a deeper sense of purpose.
Yes.
Of service.
Of understanding the human consequences.
Wow.
Of what they do.
That's powerful.
It is.
How does the guide recommend doing that?
They talk a lot about bringing those real life scenarios into the training case studies, getting these recruits to think critically about the choices they're making and what could happen as a result.
So instead of just being like, here's how you conduct a traffic stop.
Right.
You might be like, okay,
this
driver's really upset.
Exactly. What are you going to do?
How are you going to handle that?
How are you going to de-escalate that?
Wow.
How are you going to communicate effectively and find a resolution?
Where everyone's safe.
That's right.
Wow. And I bet there's not just one right answer.
There's never just one right answer, is there?
And that's part of the challenge too, right?
Exactly.
Because out in the real world, there's not a manual for everything.
No.
So they really stress the importance of those open discussions.
Yes.
That critical thinking, getting those recruits to consider all those different perspectives.
Different perspectives.
Think about what might happen because of what they do.
Think about those consequences.
And ultimately, make good decisions under pressure.
Sound ethical decisions, even under pressure.
You're training officers who are not only prepared, but who also, like, embody those values of fairness and integrity and compassion.
Exactly.
Because those are the qualities that build trust.
Yeah.
And that trust is more important now than ever.
Absolutely more important than ever.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
We have.
This deep dive into becoming a police trainer has been fascinating.
It has.
Challenging.
Challenging.
And honestly, really inspiring.
It's given me such a new appreciation for what these trainers do.
Yeah.
The role they play in shaping law enforcement.
It's huge.
It is.
If you're listening to this and you are even a little bit intrigued by the idea of like shaping the future of law enforcement, check out RoleCatcher's full career guide.
It's got everything.
It's packed with insights and resources and tips for anyone who's thinking about taking that leap.
Practical tips you can actually use.
And before we go, we're going to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
That really stuck with me.
Okay.
As I was reading through this guide.
I'm ready.
As a police trainer. How do you balance the need to prepare officers for a job that can be so dangerous and so unpredictable?
Right.
With the equally important goal of instilling those values of de-escalation and community trust and respect for all individuals?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the question.
How do you find that balance?
It really gets at the heart of what it means to
serve and protect.
Serve and protect in today's world.
In today's world.
And it's a question we hope will stay with you.
Yes.
Long after this deep dive is over.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.